welcome to the Racers HQ podcast. I'm your host, Matt Murphy. Joining us on the line tonight, Pat Mulry. How are you doing tonight, Pat?
I'm doing all right, Matt. How are you?
Doing all right. Let's do the what are you drinking section in this intro as well. What are you drinking, sir?
Oh, I'm boring again tonight. I'm just iced tea. I've taken up the challenge of trying to go about a month between sips of juice. Rachel and I are headed to Vegas here later in July, and so decided about a month out. Like, let's see if we can do that just for giggles. And it's actually gone pretty surprisingly easily. The toughest one for me actually is avoiding the pool drink when I'm out relaxing in the pool and want to, Mai Tai or something like that. But, you got to break habits to make habits, right?
I like it, Mulry. Well, that's good. That's good.
How about yourself?
Oh, me? No, I'm back on the. I have been cutting back quite a bit. I've been a good boy, but tonight it is a little bit of tastes like chicken vodka and Pamplemousse LaCroix. So, pretty trashy. I did see that somebody took one of those tastes like chicken stickers and put it on the chicken at Hallett, and I was excited about that. But
just like the budget Greyhound.
Yeah, it's
Isn't
budget.
Isn't that what it is? A Greyhound is vodka and grapefruit juice and something else.
Oh yeah, no, you might be onto something there. Yeah, the budget Greyhound. Sure. Anyway, pretty sad.
What would that make it if it were a bus line? What is the budget Greyhound bus line?
Yeah. I don't want to know.
There used to be a lot of them. I mean, there's still plenty that run down to Mexico from here, but
like in Oklahoma City, we have like the Embark system. Like if you
I'm thinking like I mean, there was another nation. I'm sure at some point there were several nationwide bus services, right?
We'll have to get into that on our bus pod here in about a month.
Right after we record the next episode of Racers HQ Optometry Daily, which has been falling behind.
Yeah,
tremendously.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress. We also have a special guest, Chris Blizzard. Chris is a longtime Lemons racer and even listens to the show, which is awesome. Thanks, Chris. But did you get yourself a refreshment for tonight's tomfooleries?
I have the most boring beverage in the world, which is just water, plain water, not even fizzy water, which I try to avoid later in the day.
Okay,
that's where I am.
Is this an immediate pro tip from Chris? Is don't drink fizzy water later in the day?
Well, not if you got acid reflux, right? Like,
okay,
it makes it worse. So that is what I've discovered.
Good to know.
As an aging Lemons racer, I guess you can call it.
No, that's going to help me out a ton, Chris, because I drink a lot of LaCroix, so I've got to cut back. And I have GERD, or acid reflux, so thank you.
All right.
There we go. All right, anyway, let's get on to it, guys. So we're going to hear from Chris here in a little bit, but got to get into some garage updates. I'm going to go first real quick. I got the radiator blew out last weekend, or last time I went racing, so I ordered another one, and to all my joy is they still have these like $100 Miata racing radiators on eBay, made in the USA, and it's like a Springfield Dyno clone. It's nice, man, and so I'm gonna give me 2 of them and have a spare, and so yeah, I'm excited about that, and it looks great. I was kind of worried. I just click buy on eBay. You never know what you're gonna get, but yeah, they came through, so I was excited about that. Pat Mulry, were you in the garage at all this weekend?
I was in the garage this weekend, mostly finishing up the Bolt organization project, which, for those of us who are maybe on the more OCD side of things, I don't know if I've gone into that on the pod before. Over the last, 12 years or so, as, bolts come off cars and don't go back onto cars, they just went into the 5-gallon bucket and the 2.5-gallon bucket, and eventually you have 70 pounds of bolts and nuts and washers sitting around that you just keep breaking your toe on. So the Father's Day present from the girls this year was that they would help out with organizing them, and nice. So that was a big messy project for about 3 weeks. occupying the dining room table and most of the kitchen island. But yeah, we got most of it nailed down. And at one point, I guess on Friday, I was waiting for Amazon to show up with like 24 more of those Acro bins to put, where we had enough bolts to be worthy of putting into their own discrete bin rather than, just like into a catch-all for some others. And got a little bit of work done on the engine. Got the oil pump back together and in, and remembered this time to pack it with Vaseline so it'll provide suction and oil pressure very quickly in the engine. And so got that done, and then I was going to getting ready to put the head on, and realized that on that BMW engine, I don't know if they're all like this, but at least that M50 series of engines has two small, like maybe 13 millimeter diameter dowels that stick up from the block, like maybe 8 or 10 millimeters, but they locate the head, right? Mm-hmm. And there's and so I was like, and of course that block, at some point in its life has gone through the machining process. I mean, since it came from the factory, and so those have disappeared. And I realized when we assembled it last time, it went in without them. And I started looking online, and it suggested, hey, that maybe is important to help locate the head. In addition to, I mean, it's got 14 or so head bolts through it or whatever. So you would think maybe those two little dowels aren't that important, but I figured, I'm not pressed for time. I might as well do it right. So, and they were like $2 from Pelican Parts or whatever. So I went ahead and ordered those and a couple other things. And so I'm waiting on those to arrive. So hopefully this weekend we'll get the top end on the engine and time. And then we actually found a couple weeks ago, before Ben left, we actually found go figure, an informative video on YouTube about doing timing on those engines that had a tip that we hadn't ever come across before. And so I'm looking forward to that too.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Man.
So
it's exciting.
Yeah, it's exciting. We'll get that engine back together here pretty soon and all that. I don't know if Road America is going to happen, not from timing, but I'm not sure we've got, I think we just don't have enough drivers to go. And, I mean, that's the sort of thing where I know I could find guys to drive that car at that track. Like that wouldn't be any problem. By which I mean strangers. But I don't want to, with as far a haul as that is from Dallas, it's like 16-hour, 17-hour tow or something like that. I don't want to do that unless it's with our guys. So, So I think we'll probably keep our powder dry on Road America. I might try and find a ride up there and fly up and do that again, because that track's just insane. So fun to drive. Blizzard, did you do that last year?
I did not. I wish I had. I wish I could do it this year, but I'm not sure the timing lines up with a bunch of other things that are going on.
Yeah. It's one of, if it's not my favorite track, it's way up there. It has a little bit of everything. It's got, long straights, and it's got fun curvy parts, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it's one of the few, I've said on the pod before, it's one of the few tracks that exceeds your expectations that you have from driving it on iRacing or in other things. It's more fun, and it's prettier, and we had a great time last year. So that may be what I do this year, but I don't think I'm going to take Miku up there. Okay. If everybody else can't be there, and we'll just keep our powder dry on that till Houston in November.
Heck yeah. Let's go beat up on Houston. I like it.
That's it. So maybe that's breaking news. There we go.
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Well, thanks, Pat, for that garage update. I like seeing pictures of your kids. They were in N95 masks and gloves. Like they didn't want any of that old brake dust or Ben's sweat or anything like that getting in their lungs.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Rachel was wearing the Chris. Rachel's my wife. Rachel's just wearing nitrile gloves. Mm-hmm. My youngest daughter Colleen was in the mask and gloves, and of course I'm just bare hands, no mask or anything. And the funny part was I'd be like, oh, I know, this bolt is like from that MR2 and it goes in this specific location because it's such, when you've got the weird fasteners, right?
Mhm.
And Rachel's just, looking at me like I've got an arm growing out of the middle of my forehead or something like that, which is the appropriate response.
I mean, you probably will soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I say, if you're wearing gloves, though, how do you tell the thread pitch? You can't feel it. It's good for sorting, right? Like,
that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I like this. Well, awesome. Yeah, no, that's a cool project. I could probably do that. Well, let's move on to our interview. We've got Chris Blizzard with us tonight. Again, longtime Lemons racer, and we're going to kind of get into the standard. How did you get to this point? Like, I'm always curious to know how people got started racing. We don't have to belabor the point too much, but it's just an odd hobby, really. And so that's always interesting to me. And then, kind of like what you're getting into these days, lessons learned, all those types of questions. So, how did you get into this wild racing thing and lemons?
Yeah, largely by accident, I think. Like, I was at work, and a friend of mine who had apparently done a lemons race, and this is in 2010, so this is a long time ago at this point, 14 years or so. He had been on a lemons team and done one race with a bunch of people. He had been invited to go and race with somebody who had a car at Thunderhill out here on the West Coast.
Nice.
And I guess a bunch of the other people had bailed, and he was the only one who wanted to take the car to a different race. And so he just started asking people at work. He's like, "You're into cars? You seem to like cars.
Yeah.
Do you want to come racing?" I'm like, "That sounds awesome. Like, how I've never raced a car. That sounds like a challenge."
Yeah.
So I bought a helmet, and I did a track day, which I had never done before, and scared my instructor a little bit, which I think most people's experience. I bought helmet and gear and all the stuff that you kind of need to be able to race lemons. In those days, I think it was a little bit less, like it was a donut, not a Hans device.
Yeah.
And I went out and had a fantastic time with him. And it was me and a couple other guys from work. And I got done with that race. Like, oh, when are we going to do this again? I got to do this again. And he's like, "Well, my team is full. And so I can't do that." And I'm like, "All right, well, I guess I'm going to build a car." I had never done that before. I had worked on cars in the past, so at least I had some of that mechanical experience as a teenager and stuff. I had rebuilt motorcycle engines and motorcycle transmissions and a lot of car maintenance stuff, and had gone to auto shop and helped other people in auto shop, and I could do a lot of stuff, but I'd never done anything like that. So I just basically built a copy of the car that he went out in, which is classically like a BMW E30, because that was the car that I had driven. I thought it was fun. Go do that. That's fine. So I found a $400 car locally, which was actually in fantastic shape and had working air conditioning and all kinds of things in it.
Wow.
And it was actually a great daily driver, and we just tore it apart and put a roll cage in it. I paid John Pagel, who's our lemons tech inspector, to put a cage in it. That was the kickoff. And I borrowed the people who had come from work to be the lemons team. And we had some of the people they knew who also wanted to come. So I had a team of 6 people. And we went out, and the first race that we did was Sonoma, and which is an interesting place to start. I didn't really know anything about Sonoma, which is good for boating. So we were having a good time, and we were racing pretty well, doing 45-minute stints, because that's all we knew how to do. A very stock car, nothing very special about it at all. And then on day 2, my friend was driving, and he got pit maneuvered at the turn 1 to turn 2, ended up in the K-wall, cars destroyed.
Oh
gosh.
Right. So, and I was super pissed. I spent 6 months building this car, and what I was doing. Really annoyed. Not actively angry, just really disappointed. And clearly in a bad mood, which is, I don't know if you ever had a car that was totaled on your team, but it's always really terrible. And put the car on the trailer, take it home. Next day, everybody is on the team is looking for a replacement car. Looking on Craigslist, the day afterwards. I'm oh, this is interesting. People are motivated. And so we found a shell, We put the car. We bought it for like $200, this empty shell with no motor, no transmission, no nothing. And we got it ready in 6 weeks. I
Wow.
think, for the Reno 24, which is kind of a notorious lemons race that people talk about, with like strippers in the in the stations and terrible weather and cold. But
Yeah,
that car was,
you guys experienced like all 4 seasons of weather in that
Yeah.
race, didn't you?
yeah. And hauled it out to Reno. And,
Yeah, and wasn't there wildlife on the track at one point in
Oh,
that
yeah.
race too?
yes, stuff crossing the track, all 30 turns of the full Reno experience. Snowing on the back half while it's raining in the bottom half. But yeah, so like we rented an RV. I hauled it out with my friend's truck that kept overheating all the way out to Reno, climbing up 80 through the mountains there. And the reason I want to get to this is like, this is our second race, right? We had installed everything in the car. The car's like looks like a rally car because I hadn't cut the springs or anything. Pagel and one of his employees at the time built a cage in that car in 6 hours.
Holy
which was
moly.
amazing. And so like between the time that like I got the car and it was in my garage ready to have enough safety equipment in it to like just start building it, it was like 4 or 5 days. So we had like
Oh my
ramped it
gosh.
up. So that was a long month basically.
Real quick,
anyway,
quick,
go ahead.
were you able to salvage anything off your like wrecked car or?
Yeah, I mean, we
Sure.
salvaged most of the stuff, like all the suspension,
Okay,
which
cool.
I didn't actually need to swap. I think it was in better shape though, and the motor and the transmission and the diff, like all like basically a complete body swap, I guess you'd call it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Minus the cage is really what we did.
gotcha. That's still very impressive. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
race number 2. Hauled it up there, and we rented an RV, and so there's 6 of us there doing this 24-hour race. Motor blew up at 10 p.m. At 20 minutes after I got in the car. Had never seen the track before, and I go out at night in this unmarked, unlit track with terrible lights in the car. Anyway, we decided we were going to swap the motor at 10 o'clock at night in Reno,
Yeah.
and then it was cold, like it was 40 Fahrenheit, and started raining, and we were working on it till 5 or 6 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting about that experience. It's kind of the point I wanted to tell it is.
Mm-hmm.
There were clearly people who opted out after that experience. Right? The team
Yeah.
got a lot smaller. Some of us like doubled down, like 3 or 4 of us like stuck with it. And I remember this one guy at like 4 in the morning. He's like, F this is not fun. Like went to the back of the RV, closed the door and left. Like never came back. So like Lemons tends to attract people who like to like work on cars and do these things with their friends that are sort of stupid, I guess is a good word to put it. And I would say that like, now if like a motor blew up, I'm not changing it at the track, right? Like I'm too old for that. And I've tried to do that too many times. But certainly at the time, it seemed like a great idea, a younger version of myself. But anyway, like that's a team composition thing, right? Like making sure that you have a set of people who are enjoy the same things that you do. Some people are really into driving. Some people are really into working on the car. Some people are like the sort of epic driver or motor change or whatever at the track. Like having that sort of alignment across the people is like really useful. And I think a lot of people go through that sorting hat and don't come out the other side. And I've seen that repeatedly. So anyway, that was like 2010. Like that was a long time ago. I think at least one of the people who's on that original team, not including myself, is still races, and we're down to like, I added people who come and go into the team.
Right.
They tried it out for a few races and decided, I had a lot of fun, but I'm going to go do something else, and you recruit somebody else. But the team that I have now is like 3 people. One of the people is sort of OG, along with myself. And we're a pretty tight-knit crew. It's just the 3 of us. We work on the cars. We have 2 cars right now. We built another car this year to replace that E30 that we raced for more than a decade.
Oh, wow.
But it means that like, I don't think we're insular, but like we've got a good dynamic and it works really well. Like they like working on electronics. I like working on the mechanical stuff. We all put time in. We all like make improvements to the car every race. There's a lot of cool stuff that these guys and myself have built over the years, which I'm happy to talk about whenever you want. I think in the interim though, like just to give some idea, like I have a spreadsheet for some of this stuff, and I think I've done 82 races at this point, which is a fair number.
That's incredible.
And I think I've won 6 or 7 overalls at this point, in that E30 mostly. Although we did, like, my first win was actually in, if you remember the Ford GT Model T.
I do. I think we all remember
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
For better or for worse, some people like it, some people hate it. It was an incredible car.
Yeah.
Just so much personality, and I think it made people crazy because it was really fast. But that was like a rent to win, basically. Like,
Okay.
we rented the car, me and Anton and another guy who was on my team. His name is Nick at the time. We dragged it out to Fish Newman, dragged it out to Miller Motorsports Park, and we raced. We won that race by 20 seconds or something.
Holy cow!
It was an incredible, like, last hour and a half. Like, Anton was in the car, and he's an amazing driver. I'm sure you know Anton. You could watch him tracking down the car ahead of him every lap by 1 second. Just took forever. It's an incredible drive. But yeah, that was our first win, and the first, like, oh yeah, we can do this if we have the right car. And I think that after that, with my core team, it was basically like deciding that, okay, well, let's try and build a car to win a race. And I think that's, like, if you want to go win a race, especially in Lemons or in anything, like, you have to make that decision, and you have to sort of commit yourself to, like, the work that's going to be involved. And I figured it would take a couple years, and it really did. And I think the first time that we won in our car was maybe 2019. So I think it took actually like 4 years to get to from realizing that, oh yeah, we actually probably have the skills to do this, to, yeah, we actually have like a car that works well enough to go and do it. And that was a really iterative process, right? Like,
yeah. So that was kind of the question was forming in my mind, and give you a chance to take a drink of water while I get to the question. Yeah. Making that decision is obviously critically important, right? Because now you set a goal for yourself, even one that's maybe sort of antithetical to the spirit of Lemons, because everybody decries the fact that they're not really here to win. They're just here to have a good time, even though at least half of the field is really wanting to win, while maintaining that sort of aloof spirit. But, you went for a period of, 5 years where you were racing and hadn't made that decision. And then you say, let's build this car to win. What was the, beyond that goal setting, like, how did your process change for getting the car ready to be able to put yourself in the position to win?
Well, I think it was, I guess there's the commitment part, which is just like sitting down with the rest of the team and be like, should we try to do this? Like, it could be interesting. There's that part, but there's also like the commitment to say, I'm going to spend the time and figure out how to do this. And the figuring out to do that is actually like a lot of the work. Like, how fast do you actually have to go? Figure out what is preventing you from being able to do better. Where are the gaps? And like in high-end racing, like, there are people who are trained to do this and there's simulations, but for us, like, we have like a lap count, like,
right.
And you go to Speed Hive, you can pull down like data on sort of what the winning requirements are. So like, are you slow on pit stops? Are you slow on time on track? Is it a skills problem on the team? Is it a mechanical problem? Like, how long do you have to be on track? How do you find the balance of, like, within the constraints that exist within Lemons rules? The primary one is fuel capacity, and cost, right? So you want to end up with a pretty cheap car, which we did, right? But you're allowed to have as much brakes as you want. You're allowed to have as much tire as you want. You're allowed to have up to 24 gallons of fuel, which we certainly built into our car. And so those are and you can drive as long as you want. So we said, okay, we can win by having a reasonably fast car and having a lot of fuel, figure out how to go do that, and then build out the rest of the car within those specs. And what's interesting to me is, like, the total cost and total dollar investment in the suspension on our car was, I think, $110. Like, that was it. Right? Like, I did pay for like some cheap springs off eBay that seemed to match what we want, and they were like $40. And then I think I bought some Honda adjusters for the front so I could set the ride height and stuff on the front. And
Yeah.
I think that was like a $40 aluminum crappy thing that I got off eBay, which, everybody who wants to lower their car has. So of course it's easily and cheaply available from China. So, but it's within the spirit of the rules. And then building in the reliability is a really important aspect of that too. And so just taking the time to prep the car, like most of winning is prepping. And then if something breaks, you try and fix it in a way that is better than what it was originally. And I think that's also a really important aspect. We got to the point with that car where we could drive it as hard as we wanted to. And the only limit that we had was the tires.
Yeah.
We had to have almost no mechanical sympathy whatsoever. I mean, like with the clutch and transmission, I was still like reasonably like gentle because those are wear items that it costs you if you screw them
Right.
up. But like drove that car as hard as I possibly could every single race. And that was another aspect too, that like getting to the point where you as a driver could do that. Anyway, I'm getting down I think you do a rat hole there, but like the first thing to do is to think like, okay, what are the constraints we have? What do we need to be able to make good decisions? And I started with fuel system, right? I think in between the time that I decided to build something and the time that I actually started to build it was like a year and a half. And I just went and like talked to people like, hey, you're winning races. What works for you? What are the things you need to build into your fuel system? And we came up with, I think, it was probably a really good fuel cell design. Put it together, tested it out. It actually worked out of the box. Actually, I'm trying to think, I don't think we actually had any problems with that cell in the several years that we've had it. And it's got a lot of redundancy in it. So it's got extra fuel pumps for, if the main pump dies, it's got lift pumps and good data associated with it. Like if you go look at it, it's got a lot of wires that go into it. But yeah, it's a lot of lemons, yeah.
Do you mind us asking, what are you using for a fuel level sender? We've struggled with that for some reason.
Fuel level sender. I'm trying to remember. There's this company in Florida that I think I got a recommendation actually from John Pagel, and I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, and I apologize.
Is it a float style or is it like a stick with the?
It's a wire.
A wire. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Actually, it's been several years since I've looked at there.
That's awesome.
No, it's fine. But I think it was the wire style, so it has fluid that'll flow in. And I don't think it has a float. I think it has like the wire style thing.
Yeah.
But the key thing for this company is you call them up and you tell them what you want, and so it has like several seconds of delay. And it'll report. So you can say like, do I want a minute of delay or a minute of averaging or 10 seconds or none at all? And like, what does the size and depth need to be? Because I basically I went to Pyrotect, which is I highly recommend, by the way, as a vendor, and said, here are all the things that I need to do. And they spent a half an hour with me on the phone as an engineer and said, like, here are some things you might want to think about that are a little bit different. Really good feedback from them also in sort of the design of this thing. And but the thing about the fuel sender is that, I said I needed to be exactly this long because this is exactly how big the fuel cell in my car is to sort of meet the stay within the rules. So there's an external sender and we also have an internal sender in the inside of it to get different readings. When we're starting to run low, we switch from one set of measurement to another. So that was also like the design of that thing was challenging, and I will give a huge amount of credit to both Fish Newman, who I think inspired me to think about fuel cells a little bit differently. Like the Model T, after watching him fuel that thing, where he was doing 5 gallons in 3 or 4 seconds, just with a huge dump can, and he's like, yeah, you bring it in when it stumbles because it's carbureted, and I fill it up. That's the only way that we know when you're running out of fuel. There's no senders, there's no special anything. It's just a mechanical signal from the car. And huge thing about that is the simplicity of that system is unparalleled. And he had some other tricks to deal with it, but nothing special. It was just really well set up in terms of this is how we operate this car, and here's what you need to know about it. So the fuel system was a lot of work. It took me a long time to build that because I'd never done anything like that before, and I didn't know the vendors, and it's always a lot of fun, and it's continued to be like I think one of the most reliable parts of the car. We actually still never lost a fuel pump in that for some reason. I expected to. I carry spares, like everybody should, but it hasn't been an issue. So that's like one of the primary things. The other thing that we really iterated on was driver comfort, right? Like this is actually something that I think people don't end up spending a huge amount of time on, but is incredibly important.
Yeah.
By the way, one thing about the fuel cells, there's this guy, his name is probably people don't know his name, Pete Presley, and Pete drives the Cerveza number 2 car on the West Coast, which I think may still be the most winning car. And we share a garage, right? We have this large garage on the West Coast. There's a bunch of Lemons cars in there. And he helped me with a bunch of this stuff, like how to think about these problems and stuff. And so like you can give him a lot of credit for the wins that we've had. Like I'm driving at least an iteration of his fuel cell. I think it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
But there's a reason why those guys win too. And a lot of that's Pete's mentality also, which I sort of picked up on too. Like I want to give him some credit. But like he's the thing that keyed me into this too, which is like driver comfort's a really important thing.
Yeah.
And once again, it's free. Your car shouldn't be too loud because that's tiring. For a long time, we ran without power steering. Makes the car feel better. And at some point, especially my teammates for some reason were always like, my shoulders are killing me after being in the car for 2 hours.
Yep.
And I'm not a particularly strong person at all. Like probably one of the weakest people I know, but I didn't have that particular problem. But I did realize, I get tired at the end of the stint if you're out there for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And so we put power steering back in the car, right? Like you don't hear that in race cars. In the car, people would be like, yeah, I could drive for another hour if you need me to. I'll be fine out here for 2.5, 3 hours. Power steering, power brakes. One of my teammates, his name is Simon. He we iterated on the seat bracket, the driver's seat bracket, I think 2 or 3 times just to get the comfort right? Like that, we figured out the right angle to put it at, and just like that car is probably the most comfortable car, or it was the most comfortable car. I mean, our current car is also the same way because we use the same techniques. Incredibly comfortable to sit in, incredibly comfortable to drive. We're in it for 2.5 hours, it's fine. And the other thing we did was way back in the day was we built a reasonably large cool shirt system, which is a critical part of that experience too. So keeps you cool. Like I am not a seasoned athlete. Once again, I'm just a normal guy who sits in a chair for most of his job in his life. So, we invest in that quite a bit. And the other thing I think that we sort of did along the way that I think is also really important is like, you'll hear me, like part of my job, my day job is to say like, good data makes good decisions. And we have telemetry that comes out of the car. We had a race capture, very early race capture, and iterated with that a lot. And, the other thing I was saying that like you can beat on the car as hard as you want. We set it up so that you don't have to ever look at gauges other than your TAC. So if something's going wrong with the car, it's overheating, fuel low, oil pressure low, like anything that like it might be catastrophic and you really need to stop operating the car, there's just a red light that comes on. That's it. Just a master warning light, like an airplane. Like, hey, like something's really broken. You need to go look at it. And usually the thing is, if you get that master warning light, you got to stop driving the car. That's usually what happens. Like you're going to blow up the engine, or the engine's already blown up, or you have to like basically like a hose. Well, I'll give you the real world example. At the Ridge one year, we had a hose come apart. The lower radiator hose just split down the middle, looked like a elephant's leg, I think, at one point. The red light came on, and I was like, crap! I just turned the car off. And by the time, and I just shut off the car, rolled all the way back down to the pits, actually, because the Ridge has a big downhill, and I was at the right section, so I rolled all the way back down to the pits, into the pits. We parked the car, took it, and there was no water left in that car whatsoever, like nothing. Car engine was fine; it never overheated. It got to like 240, whatever. I don't remember what it was, but like that. So I didn't have to replace an engine, right? Because BMW engines, you overheat them once, they never come back, right?
Yep.
especially the heads anyway. But
Right.
so like that's an example, right? Like we do not spend a driver effort on looking at gauges or worrying about health. You just like make it dumb, make it incredibly simple to operate. You turn the wheel, press the gas pedal, right?
So to dive into that a little bit on your RCP, did you just program the light of like in Lua, you programmed a series of conditions, and if any one of them trips, it just throws on the red light?
Yep, that's basically it.
Yeah.
And interestingly, like, yeah, we had, we have an Android, we had an Android tablet in the car, and it has gauges on it because that's actually the easiest and cheapest way to do that these days. But that Android tablet would actually overheat and fail, or you'd forget to plug it in, or something would go wrong. You'd lose telemetry. But what's interesting is like the light system is completely independent of that, right? The RCP actually proved to be pretty reliable. And you could just like no gauges, red light's not on, keep driving, right? Like, and you could depend on it. So that was also another interesting thing too, was like that aspect of reliability really played well for us too, because we'd have races where like the tablet would turn off and it didn't actually matter that much. We could diagnose it later. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. That's interesting, Chris, because Matt and I have been down a different road with RCP. We bought one of the very first. I mean, it might have been, literally in the beta process, and we kind of feel like we've been on that somewhere in the alpha beta stage ever since. With the RCPs and have never, because we thought, especially as we were, on the car we have now was basically a body swap like you were talking about. And we talked a lot about telemetry and we do use telemetry, although it still isn't as solid as we'd like. But we have the RCP and we have it, all sorts of sensors into it and all of that. But we've just never had the confidence to rely on it like you do with, like I understand what you're saying, and I really appreciate the approach, and especially the simplicity of the approach. I don't think I have the courage to do that, given our experience with the RCP. I would be more concerned that the RCP is just gonna, flake out, and we're gonna blow up in an engine and never have a red light.
Yeah, that has not been our. I think we ran an RCP2 in that car forever.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is like we never updated the firmware or the app ever, right? Like we had something that worked, we never touched it again.
That's pretty smart, actually.
Yeah, because when are you going to go find out when it crashes, right? Like on track, you don't want that. And
that sounds like hardcore software developer right there. Like, wait, this version of the firmware is working with this version of the hardware. Don't touch it.
Yep.
Right.
I mean, like we know. I would say that like I work in an industry, and part of my job is that we work on reliability, and most of our reliability problems are caused by people.
Yeah.
They're not caused by bad software. They're caused by like people doing something they're not supposed to be doing, or they make a mistake, or the guardrails aren't big enough. Anyway, like that's a whole separate thing. But like, we probably, if I had done, we had done track days to test the car, I happily would have upgraded things, but we literally never did track days. We just did a bunch of prep work. We show up for a race, right? Like, we do test days sometimes. But like my experience with RCP was there are integration problems with it. Like we had one of the things we ran into was that the stable +5 voltage that it emits, that the amount of power that's available from that isn't enough to run a bunch of sensors, and you have to have an external supply. It would droop after a certain amount of, if the resistance on some of the sensors got low enough, and it would look weird. And we worked around that. By we, I mean like one of the guys on my team who loves to do this stuff, not me. And the other thing we did was, we wrote, once again, the same guy, I say we, wrote software like that. We completely filled the memory available on that thing with a program, right? Like all of our fuel management for the fuel cell, the base signals gets turned on the display into like how many gallons are left, and is also available through telemetry in the pits. Like we knew within a tenth of a gallon how much fuel was in that fuel cell all the time.
That's incredible.
And so, it's like it took a long time to get there, though. A lot of data gathering, and a lot of processing, and a lot of trial and error, and we're doing all this stuff by hand. So, could
we borrow him for 4 to 6 years?
He's very busy, unfortunately. Actually, he's probably spent more time in the car than I have in the last like 2 months. So that's a whole separate thing.
Maury, step one is get a reliable fuel level signal, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I'll look it up when we're done, and I'll send it to you. You can throw it in the show notes, as you say.
I appreciate that. That'd be great.
I think it's like Pegasus or something. I'll look it up. Anyway, but that, for the record, that's a raw signal. Like, we have a relatively low, like 10-second sample, and then we process it after the fact. Like, it's that the fuel level sender is good, but like it only tells you within 1/8, right? Like, that's not. We knew that in order to make decisions on track about whether or not we needed to come in on fuel, we needed something much more sensitive. So we actually like worked to take that signal and turn it into something that, through testing, loading fuel in the thing on a test day, and then figuring out how much we burned through. Like, we knew it took many races for us to get to the point where we had that data enough to be able to do it. And it just takes work. Yeah. This is part of that process. Like, why did it take you so long to get to that point? Yeah. Anyway, but that's an example.
A lot of dedication. I mean, that's deciding on, here's a program, and we're going to have to stick 3 or 4 races into it, which is going to be a year at least. Yeah. At least at the pace for most teams, right? And we're going to stick with that. But at the end of this, we'll have a real useful piece of information. I mean, to get down to a tenth of a gallon, that, especially like when you're thinking about what you guys have done, to be able to get to the end of a race and be like, do we need a splash or do we not need a splash? No, we know we've got half a gallon and we're going to use 0.4 of a gallon in the rest of this race at this pace, and we don't need a splash, right? And that's the difference in some of these races. That's, that really is. It's crazy that Lemons is to that point, right? But it is the difference in some of these races now.
Well, I think we're the only team who's doing something like that. I don't think anybody else does that.
I think you're probably right.
At least that I know of. Like, most people just like brutalize their way out of it. So, and we were not that team, right? We were brutalize as a verb. That's not a great word, but like, our primary competition was like Isor, who was always faster than us. Yeah. And head to head, usually they win. They're amazing, and legitimately like a $500 car. Cerveza also. Right. They have amazing suspension, amazing drivers, and really well prepped car. Also, like, legitimately $500 car. Like, they just meticulous on prep, amazing drivers. And most recently, there's this team called UMad Bro on the West Coast. I think we sort of beat out a lot. They were coming in second to us a lot of the time, and I think we frustrated them until they finally won. But that car is like an E36 with a LQ9 swap and 300 wide tires and the biggest brakes I've seen in my life. I don't even know what they came from, and just like throwing hardware at the problem, and good drivers too. Just 2 guys usually. But anyway, like, I go out and drive and I use the whole track, and our car is not particularly fast. It doesn't usually set the fast lap. In fact, I don't think we've ever set the fast lap for a race. But it's right up there. And you can drive it where it needs to be, and the driver, like 10 years of driving, means that you can read traffic pretty well and get through. But yeah, like you saying that, like, I remember our race. The other thing I was gonna say is, like, we don't know if we need to do a splash, but what we could do is we could look at the trend line and figure out whether or not we need to back off and fuel save. Yeah. And so we can make those decisions at runtime on track. And so there were a few races where, like, it came down to that. And like, I remember one race in Buttonwillow where we basically 2-stinted a Sunday, which is difficult. You do one stop, so he doesn't drive that day. But like, we came in, and there was 1/10 of a gallon of fuel in the tank. Jeez. We know that there was, because it took all 23.5 gallons.
23.9.
Yeah, no, our fuel cell is actually only 23.5 gallons. It's like, that's what it came out to, like, the space of it and the, like, all the stuff that's inside it. And that was the closest we've ever come, I think. And I think we did have one race where we sputtered it, I think, at the end, but we knew that we were going to run out, so like, that was fine. We'd get across the finish line with the checkered flag. That was enough. I definitely built the capacity so that you had enough signal to get one lap of signal on the Thunderhill 5 mile. That was the other thing too, was like, you know that you're not going to run out. You can get around the track that one last time when it starts signaling.
Nice.
So once again, and then that's available to the driver. There's just like a fuel light. If it starts flashing, you're really low, like within that window. But if it's on red and solid, like you're under 4 gallons, I think it is. So you can even like start a timer when you see that light. Yeah. Even if you don't have a gauge display or you lose telemetry, which is also a thing that happened on a regular basis. But back to your original question, like we didn't actually have RCP crashing problems. The tablets would overheat, and you had to like. Yeah. Actually, one of the things that was really funny was we had to. It took a long time to find a high quality cable that could provide enough power to the Android tablet to keep it alive, and that was not something you'd think about. But like,
no.
Yeah, the resistance of the cable causes Android to charge at a lower rate. Eventually, it falls behind, starts using the battery, and then it gets hotter, and then it overheats because we were racing in 100-degree weather.
Yeah.
So stuff like that you don't normally think of, but like that's the stuff we run into.
Yeah, that's definitely not something you pick up at the race car supply facility, right? I need an Android cable that doesn't have a resistance in the thousands.
I think my friend Dan, who's on the team, he ordered like a bunch of stuff off Amazon and just like started measuring things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this one's actually like says what it is, because a lot of it's just lies.
Right.
It says something. Oh yeah, real copper. It's like, no, it's not. Like you can tell. And also like you had to go look at the system design and figure out how did it step down when it charged, and like you could find those symptoms too. So.
Chris, I got to know real quick, are you measuring by weight or volume when you're doing all this data gathering?
Which usually volume, I guess. I haven't done weight stuff. It's not quite that exact. But we just know, like, based on the fuel jugs and whatever the pump says at the gas station. It's like, oh, this is 5 gallons.
Right.
Yeah. So whatever the pump uses, I guess, is actually the answer to that question. I haven't done anything. But also, like, we know that like it shrinks at night, so we fill it up before we go to sleep, and then that fuel cools down. It goes down a little bit. We add a little bit more in the morning, right, just to get a little bit more fuel. Stuff like that.
That's a pro tip right there. That's what that is.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm curious, real quick. So you've talked a lot about the car and some of the systems you built for that, which I think is really cool. And I feel like you almost hinted on this, but have you done some driver development? Have you taken, have you focused on that over the last, 5 to 10 years? Or do you just kind of like do stints in a certain way to help, optimize your performance?
Less than you'd think.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I honestly, no. Like, we just do Lemons races. Although I will say that, like, there are clear. First of all, like, actually, I guess it's not entirely true, especially for me, because I raced with a bunch of other people.
Yeah.
Right. So I have my own car with my team. We run that car together. But I'd go drive with Anton at Sonoma most of the time. Like, we just don't run Sonoma anymore in my car. But I'm happy to go drive with Anton. I go and drive Barber with somebody. I go just driving at random locations, MSR, with a sort of larger Tetanus crew, for example. Like, I sometimes get rides there. But like, I've driven Jeff Hanka's cars in HPR. So like, I actually, and this is like the Neil Losi trick, and Anton trick, which is just like, you drive Lars, you learn a lot about how different cars handle and what yours may or may not do. You learn what they may or may not do. You learn to find the edge of what those cars can do. And I think one of the most important things that I've learned is, like, different cars are good at different things, and your driving style needs to reflect that.
Yeah.
And I think even within the last like 3 or 4 years, one of the things I learned was, like, I got really good at telling, and this is just a recent thing, really good at telling the state of the tires and figuring out how to keep them from overheating. Like, how hard you can drive to keep them in a constant temperature that is not destroying them quickly, but gives you almost everything that they possibly can. And being able to feel when you're getting past that point and then backing off, right? Or lap over lap, if you had a really hot lap and you were using the tires more, you need to back off a little bit, or you need to pull your braking points back early enough to because the tires aren't going to do what they did a lap ago or 2 laps ago. And also, like, race in the rain as much as you possibly can is also a really, really important thing. And I think that I have gotten to the point now where when it's raining, I want to be at the track, right? Like, this is great joy from racing in the rain. My favorite thing these days. So just like,
so how did you get to that point? Because that is definitely not the perspective of most racers, especially most Lemons racers, right?
I think it's just time and seat.
Yeah.
I hate to say it. I don't think there's a secret to it. I would say that I'm sure it would have happened a lot faster had I had some coaching or professional coaching, but like, I'm just busy. And that stuff isn't cheap either, but like, I'm not totally price sensitive to these things, but it's just time. I'd rather be out there racing or working on the car whenever I can. And so, like, I've never prioritized that, but I think that through the combination of like building the trust with a larger community within Lemons that lets me come and try their cars and spend time in them, and I think that was a really useful thing. And I learned that from Anton and Neil. Like, I also can't take credit for that, and so I mostly ride off their sort of like social network of people who are in Lemons and that trust. And I haven't, like, I'm a reliable person, I think, on track for the most part. So
yeah, one way to not get invited back is be hard on equipment or get a lot of black flags or just be a jerk to be around, right? I don't think that fits you in any of those.
No, certainly not. I am, like, to be clear, also, like, I'm the slowest person on my team, right? Like, I know a fair bit, and I think I'm better in traffic than most people I know, but I'm also not the fast lap guy. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I will not hit the fast lap of the weekend for the most part, unless your team is really junior. And I don't really try either. Like, that's not me. I'm trying to find the limits to get to the goal that we have, which is sometimes just to go have fun. Right? Like, I will say that, like, we won a bunch of races. I should talk about that at some point too, like the latest evolution of what we're doing. But
you might as well transition to that right now. So the rumor is that, or the way it got passed around was that, which I guess a little tongue in cheek, was that you had won too many races and decided that winning had gotten boring and you needed a different car so that you guys would start having fun at the track again. And I'm sure that's not accurate, but that is the way I heard it.
It is absolutely accurate, actually. Like, we did this race at Thunderhill, no, not Thunderhill, at Buttonwillow, and it was the last race we won. And they gave us penalty laps, and there wasn't a huge amount of competition there. Like, we started off with 3 laps, and I took the car out, and I said, all right, my goal is to, like, pass every one of these cars 3 times. And so I did, like, in one stint. Like, I just ate up 3 laps against everybody else in the field, and then we were up like 7 laps at the end of the first day, and then we finished because we got lucky with yellow flags and stuff, but and changing and fueling the car. And then we got to the end of the race, and it was 10. We were up by 10 laps. We, like, even starting with penalty laps, and it was not a great look. And the Lemons guy, Lemons people, like, you win a lot of races, it's sort of getting a little obscene. I'm like, yeah, but we also, like, as a group, we got home, we finished that race, and, like, was that fun? And we were like, it felt like work, because when you get out in front, you suddenly feel like you got to go defend that, and it was getting to the point where it wasn't fun, and the car was worn out. We'd been just beating the hell out of it for over 10 years, and we're like, all right, well, let's build something a little slower, right? Like, so we built this similar car, right? Like, it's the TI, the 318 Ti BMW.
Oh, like the little hatchback?
Yeah, it's light. It's got basically like an E36 front end and an E30 back end, and it's slow. It's got a 4-cylinder, 135 horsepower.
Yeah, because that's kind of the secret weapon. By once you put the straight 6 in it.
Yeah. Well, we don't. It's got the 4-cylinder in it. And we've been just having fun, going out and having a great time and doing what we can within the scope of what that car let us do. We actually won Class B for the first time ever in that car at Thunderhill at the last race. And that car doesn't have any camber plates. It is stock. It has nothing special. It came with a gigantic sway bar on the back that were in the handling. We put the stock sway bar on the back of it. That's the suspension change we've made to it. We haven't 275,000 miles. We have the original motor that came with it, transmission. We just put a cage in it. I've been racing it for a year and a half or something. It's a great time.
Nice.
We don't take it seriously. We just go out and have a great time. So we'll see how long that lasts, because I think that especially other people on the team are vibrating a little bit, but maybe get back to it, but we'll see.
You said you have 2 race cars. What's the other one?
So yeah, that should have been the garage update, which is the car I should be working on, which is still have an AMC Spirit.
That's right.
I had built a Bricklin SV1 and raced it 3 times. One IOE. That thing was just the worst car I think I've ever come across or worked on. You can go look one up. It's a hilarious gull wing door car. It's made of fiberglass from the 70s. But there are a lot of leftover parts from that car. I like American Motors cars for whatever reason. And so I had the Spirit, and I should put it together and take it to the AMC Spirit race up in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
I want to do that this year, but there's only 10 weeks left. And Fish and Anton had offered, I think, graciously to come and help. They wanted to do that and then have Neil come along too. But I haven't had time to follow through on it, and I feel terrible. But it's sitting. It's a roller with a cage, and I have a motor to put it in and everything. I just haven't gotten around to it. Just been so busy with life.
So was the Bricklin an AMC motor and transmission?
Yep, it was like a AMC 360 and a God, I'm trying to remember the name of it. The automatic transmission, the 700. What is it? 701. Oh my God, I can't remember now. I rebuilt that. I learned how to rebuild automatic transmissions from that transmission.
Oh gosh.
Because I rebuilt it 3 or 4 times.
Oh gosh.
It would eat itself at every race in a different way, and I'd find parts to fix that and upgrade it, and then it would break itself in a different way. And God, that car. 727. That's what it was. I think the transmission. The big brother of the one that's in the Dart that's in Texas. 904 transmission, push button one. People swore up and down that people drag race with these transmissions all the time. I will tell you, man, endurance racing ain't drag racing. Just doesn't put up with heat and abuse. We stacked radiators together until we get the transmission temperature down to something reasonable. And man, that car was terrible to drive, terrible to work on. Took years of lungs out of my life being fiberglass. It's terrible. That was actually the thing. It's I didn't mind the Bricklin too much. It was just it didn't sit high enough, and I needed it to be made of metal. So that's why I got the Spirit. Actually, that was, I think, the rationale. But I really like to drive a American V8 5-speed on the track, which I actually, except for the Model T, I've never really done.
Yeah. That's a different experience.
Yep.
Very different experience. It was an automatic transfer. Well, it's some similar in a V8 in the car that Fairlane, whatever it was, I drove at Road America last year, and it was very different experience coming from our E36, which is, when we've got it running, a blast to drive and easy to drive, relatively speaking.
So easy.
Yeah,
so easy.
and then this is 5,000 pounds of American Fury, and a big blasting motor, and not nearly enough brakes, and
no brakes.
Disc. That one he had converted at least the front to discs, but rear drums, and so you come flying down the stretch at Road America, and then your braking points are way far out, because then you got to turn 5,000 pounds on. Not a real race suspension, but it was fun. Kind of to the point that you were saying, you drive different things and you realize you learn different things about how to do something in a car that, especially with lemons, really doesn't have any place ever being on a racetrack,
Yep. And Anton's car was the best for that.
Yeah.
Right. Because He would bring
Which
a different car.
Which one? The Cavalier or the Volvo?
Oh, both of them. I drove
Yeah.
that Cavalier a lot. That thing was
Yeah.
great. That thing was so underrated. It was fantastic. That thing was the Ridge. Like I would choose no other car for the Ridge in particular. Like that thing was sliding through turn 2 on the inside line that people are just like, why did you just pass me? You're sliding, like going up the hill. There's nothing like that car. Had amazing brakes, if nothing else. Like,
Nice.
yeah.
So I'll give you a very specific Anton question. Has he always been opposed to the radio, or is that a recent thing for him?
I don't know. I think he's tried to have radios on a number of occasions and sort of just like not been able to get them to work right. I mean, like he's had them sometimes, but he's also, I think often it comes down to just priorities. Like he's always working on something else that's higher priority, which I think is probably the right choice. And
sure.
Yeah. I mean, we bought radios for our second race or third race, maybe a little bit later than that, but like, and we bought a kit that works and we've used ever since. Like it's just transported from car to car. But it's also like, I think maybe the single largest expense we ever had on the car. A couple grand, I think we paid for a kit. And, but we've used it for, once again, 12 years probably. Like, got our money's worth.
Yeah, we went through a stage where we had the point I'm going to get to eventually here is that reliable communications are worth every penny you pay for it to get it to reliability. And we had a problem for a while where the radios were fine, but we were having trouble with helmet kits and just sorting through helmet kit after helmet kit on different guys with different kits, to the point now where I think at least half of us are on Stilo helmets because the comms kit in them is, just absolutely bulletproof. But that was always such a huge frustration when you'd have, somebody in the car and they can't hear you or you can't hear them, and trying to coordinate, pit stops and all of that business. So, reliable communications.
Yeah, I mean, we've run into that from time to time. Helmet kits, push to talk switches, and the cables are rare items. They fail.
Yeah.
But the big thing for us is like we should be able to operate without. So one of the things we always establish with the driver is like, what's your lost comms time? You pick a time. You're going to come in at that time. Doesn't matter, like whatever, and then you'll be in the pits at that time, and you'll be fine. So generally, we don't do like worrying about black flags and stuff because we don't tend to get them, and if we get them, we know how to deal with them. So it's not a huge deal.
It feels like I don't know if you have this perspective. I was thinking about this the other day for really no good reason. It feels like black flags are very different now than they used to be.
You think?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
how so?
I think we're also kind of that same stage. Like we don't get a lot of black flags anymore. We used to get them, a little bit more frequently, and now if you do, it's probably a pass under yellow or something like that. But I guess it used to just, maybe it's that we used to get them more, and so we would get subjected to the real penalties rather than just the finger wagging. Don't do that again. You've been doing this long enough that you know about like the radiator of Damocles and
it's my favorite penalty.
One of mine too. I think my favorite is probably the what did Phil call that with the car alarm? The Taiwanese national anthem penalty.
Yes.
Yeah.
They know us. They know we mostly stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
And they don't usually penalize us for that kind of stuff. And honestly, like we get a black flag every other weekend, maybe, and it rotates from person to person.
Yeah.
Actually, I had a contact black flag a few races ago, which is very rare for me, where somebody did something I didn't expect and I was well overcommitted, right? But like that happens sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's rarely like we don't usually get 2 black flags in a day.
Yeah.
So we don't tend to see it. But like I see the cars getting penalties, people strapped to their roofs, people parked. Like it still happens. I think it's just like you get better at it. And we, like when we started, we get black, like Dan on my team, he'd go out and he would finish his stint with a black flag like every single time. Like that is how it worked. Of something going off track,
right?
Something along those lines. So,
but I guess that kind of goes back to the commitment. Like when you get everybody committed to the idea that we really are going to go out and try and win, part of that's going to be like changing your mentality on the track too. Like, I don't have to win this quarter. I just need not to get a black flag in this quarter.
Yep.
Chris, what's your like favorite track out there in California? And then is there another favorite track out, in North America or the world that you really enjoy?
I mean, I have a deep affection for the original Thunderhill 3 Mile.
Mhm.
It's a classic track. It's fast. It flows really well. And it's my first track, so I have affection for it. I think on the West Coast, my favorite track is probably the Ridge, actually, which I think a lot of people don't get the chance to drive, and it usually has a very small car count. And I love it. Huge elevation changes, flows well, long front straight, rewards both like cars that turn well, cars that brake well. It usually rains, so like you have to be able to drive in multiple conditions. So I think it's a great test, but it's beautiful up there. It's a long haul for us comparatively. We usually do best at Buttonwillow because, like, for whatever reason, the car was set up for that. It's a very fast track. But I think, like, most recently, my favorite track is actually, like, I finally did Barber this year.
Oh yeah,
amazing facility. The track itself is just wonderful to drive. The people there seem to have a really good attitude, like the people who show up for that race.
Right.
That was my experience. So like that's my most recent one. But I've driven a lot of tracks. I haven't driven Road America yet. And like I said, I'd love to try that sometime. Because I think that'll probably be fun. I think that's probably my favorite.
oh yeah, yeah. That's gotta love Barber. It is also a favorite. Yeah. Well, good stuff. Mulry, what else are we missing here? What else do we need to dig into before we wrap this thing? There's so much. I feel like Chris is like a gold mine. Like if he'd be willing to tell me all of his secrets, I would sit here for hours. But,
right. What we really need is a 4-part Chris Blizzard brain dump. To just an hour on fuel cell alone, right? Like would be worthwhile. Because we certainly have fussed with that too, and like Matt was saying, I'd love to hear what fuel sender you're using because I put a LiDAR in this one, and it's better than any we've used
freaking
before.
LiDAR, man.
What is that a thing? You use LiDAR to like tell how high the fuel? Oh man,
yeah,
that just seems,
Holly makes it. Yeah, no, it's worked better than any, which maybe is more of an indictment of the others that we've used, but it's worked better than the others. Holly makes this LiDAR sensor, and as long as it can, has a tunnel to the bottom of the fuel cell, it can see how much fuel is in there, and then it's signaling something. But I'm still not thrilled with the results that we get out of it. And yet it is better than anything we've had. So,
yeah. Well, we didn't ours didn't work until we put a huge amount of time and software in front of it. So,
yeah.
Good to know.
That's what I need to know. That'd be a good. Although maybe you don't know the answer to this since you've got 3 guys you've been doing this with for 14 years. But recruitment would be a good topic for us to cover at some point. We've I've lost Ben has moved out, and so now it's just me pretty much working on the car, and that's a limited resource in so many aspects. Like you talk about, software development. I'd love to have somebody that knows how to do that because that is 100% not my skill set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd like recruitment is good team dynamics is the most important thing. Like, nothing else matters actually. And I've gotten reasonably lucky. I think like this most recent guy. I'll give you an example. So the most recent guy, his name is Simon. He's from Australia originally. My other teammate's from New Zealand, right? So it's just like a cavalcade of countries. But he also worked where I work, and I posted in a local forum and said, "Hey, like I'm looking for another person for this team, this Lemons team. Let me know if you're interested. And this is what we do, and this is what how we have fun, and try and filter on that. Like this is not serious racing."
Yeah.
Right. And this guy, his name is Simon. And what he said in the group was like, "Hey, I built my own ECU for my Turbo 944 in Australia." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting because if you're working on 944s and you're passionate about them, you already enjoy pain. right? Like, so if you ever change a clutch in a 944,
Right.
he's like doing his own development for boards, and he's like adding turbos to his cars, and I'm like, that is an interesting person to talk to. And he turned out to be super nice. We just tried him out for a race, set expectations, be like, come and try it out with us, see if you like it. He turned out to be, he's faster than I am. He's done 10th the number of races I have, right? Like,
Yeah.
So he's fast. He's really decent to work with. He puts the work in. He communicates really well. He doesn't get angry at anybody else other than himself. And you have to be like the beacon for that, but like you also have to get lucky, and you have to know when you advertise for that, you have to know how to pull in the right people. And I think that's actually a really big key thing to it. Like I was very careful to like advertise that what this was and what it wasn't.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And to the Racers HQ audience, if you live in Dallas and would like to get involved in this, get in touch with us on the socials.
Yes.
Yeah. Holler.
If you both have a problem with boundaries, because that seems to be the common thing for lemons, and also are otherwise a well-adjusted human with a good sense of humor and not too big an ego, you might be welcome. But Chris, you make a good point, because that's one thing I've said on the pod dozens of times. Like we've been very fortunate that for the most part we haven't had any jerks on our team. If they did, they didn't last. If they were on the team, they didn't last. And I've just been very lucky that the guys that have joined the team, Matt Murphy, at the top of that list, have all been good guys. Fun to be around. I mean, at this point, I think there's a lot of lip service paid to, we just want to go to the track and have a good time. But I'm definitely at that point. Like that's what I really don't care about racing the car. Apart from lemons, I'm not taking out to track days and stuff like that. But what motivates me to keep going is I want to go and have fun with my friends on the team at the track, And I think that's probably, Jay told me a long time ago that this is like, it's really just a fun time around cars, talking with other people who like to be around cars and talk about cars when all of your other friends are sick of hearing you talk about cars.
Yep. Yeah, I've got, I think almost all of my best friends, aside from like a couple of people and my wife, are from Lemons.
Yeah.
Right, like Anton and Neil and Chris and Mary, whom I know from Texas,
right.
and otherwise, like a bunch of these people are like my best friends, and I talk to them every day, and it's been a good community, and like people are always like, go do SCCA or NASA or something, or some other like racing event. I'm like, I have fun here. Like this is the thing I'm actually here for.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it's real racing. There is real racing goes on, but like most of it's about the people, and like I'm a huge believer in that.
Yeah.
Nice, man. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for sharing everything with us tonight. I think there's probably several episodes of content there, but it sounds like lots of good adventures. Chris, do you have a fight song? Do you have the hype? The hype song.
I'm ending the hype list. Yes.
Oh man, I have a great hype list song. I think I got it from Anton too. It's Racing Day by the Backyardigans, like the children's show.
Okay.
I am not kidding. It is fantastic for
Racing
Lemons morning.
Day by the Backyardigans. Okay.
Yes.
That'll flow right into Enya.
Absolutely not. But it is funny and fun. And it like puts you in a good mood no matter what. And I'm not kidding, right? Like we often listen to it on the morning that we go out before we race.
Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
We'll cue it up right after Jesus Built My Hot Rod.
Also a great song. A great song, but like
different.
Yeah.
Good deal. Sure. All right. Well, thanks so much for that. Maury, you got any closing thoughts tonight? Any shout outs?
No, Chris, thanks so much for coming on to I had originally invited Chris on the podcast like probably a year and a half ago. Maybe did you guys win a national championship? Maybe
We did.
Yeah.
Something triggered it. I don't remember what it was. It was like February of 23 because I looked back in the chat log. I was like, didn't you ask me to be on this? I can't remember because I had to look it up.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was that triggered it. It's probably a race win. Maybe the 24-hour win.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And and so I invited Chris a long time ago, and then it didn't work out for whatever reason then, and it had just kind of I'd kind of spaced it, and then Chris pinged me. I think it was last Wednesday, actually, maybe like right after we recorded the one with Ross. I was like, hey, this is good timing because we don't have anything for next week, and we don't have enough car build going on to fill an hour of just us talking. So this is perfect, Chris. So thank you so much for coming on. It, great information. Always love having other Lemons guys on, especially the veterans at this point.
Yeah, anytime, man. I'm like happy to talk about this stuff for hours, and like if I talk about whatever you need.
Nice.
Yeah, good.
We'll definitely have you back on.
Absolutely.
We want to keep learning all this stuff. Very good. Well, guys, let's wrap this thing up. I want to give so we had so much content the last 2 weeks. We haven't talked about F1 at all, but my boy Lewis Hamilton, after 3 years, won a damn race. So I got to give him a shout out. He's probably listening, so you're welcome for all the publicity, Lewis.
That's right. We need the DJ horn sound effect that we can't get to work. The pow, pow, pow. There you go.
Yeah, I like it. Anyway, but no, aside from that, yeah, man, I'm gonna get the Miata running this weekend and do a leak down test because I saw 250 before we shut her down last time. So
yeah,
we're gonna check a few seals, but we'll see how strong that little K24 is. Anyway, so yeah, like and subscribe, rate and review. You can listen to us by watching our video of just the logo on YouTube. Apparently people do that. Yeah, there's been hundreds of hours of people doing that this last month. So whatever, no kink shaming. So yeah, thanks for that. But yeah, like and subscribe, rate and review. And we'll see you at the track. Bye, everybody.
All right. Good night, y'all.